I still see many misconceptions about gaming on Linux online, and they are honestly a pain. From anti-cheat games not working on Linux to you can't play new AAA games, and I'm sorry to say that they are all false. Now, I'm not saying that whoever told you about these things is a liar, but consider that maybe they have told you half-truths. I'm Oscar, the super user, and today we'll be exploring the myths of gaming on Linux. We'll be talking about how the current experience is and really what you can and can't do. Don't take this as a brag, but I am quite a heavy gamer. I play many genres and I've touched different niches of gaming such as modding, rhythm games, flight and space simulators, racing sims, emulation, online games, virtual reality, and I also have a Steam library of over 2,000 games and a shelf full of old PC games on CD and DVD format. So, when I tell you that I can game comfortably on Linux, it's not from a casual point of view. It's from someone who games way too much. With my gaming cred established, I can confidently tell you that I can stay on Linux as a gaming platform. How do I manage that, you might ask? Well, it does have its upsides and downsides, but I can do the gaming I want on Linux perfectly fine. If you're willing to put up with a few compromises that are not that bad, and you still have reasons to switch to Linux, detailed in the video that I posted some time ago over here, then maybe you can put up with these annoyances and say that you can also comfortably game on Linux. With those aside, get ready for my lengthiest video yet, because we are covering a huge portion of PC gaming on Linux, so strap in because we're beginning with the elephant in the room: anti-cheat games. You probably heard the blanket statement of anti-cheat games do not work on Linux. The problem about that is that it's not entirely true. Anti-cheat games do work on Linux, but not all of them. And that's the key you must understand. You can play many games with anti-cheat on Linux just fine, such as Helldivers 2, Hell Let Loose, The Finals, Halo Infinite, Ark Survival Evolved, War Thunder, Squad, Counter-Strike 2, Arma 3 and Arma Reforger, Dota 2, Titanfall, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Whew, do you want me to go on? Because there are many more, and they are all listed over at areweanticheatyet.com. Great resource, by the way. It's actually easier to list the games that don't allow Linux because of their anti-cheats, such as Destiny 2, Fortnite, the modern Call of Duty platform, Valorant, League of Legends, Battlefield 6, Rainbow Six Siege, Roblox. Yes, these are probably the most popular online games right now, so if you're a fan of these, you're currently out of luck. I used to play a lot of Destiny 2 before switching to Linux, so I had to give it up, but it was a worthwhile trade, in my opinion. So yes, you can play anti-cheat games, a fair amount of them, but not all. Aside from that, there are many online games with server-side anti-cheat that work perfectly fine on Linux too. Some examples are Sea of Thieves, Red Dead Redemption Online, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, Guild Wars 2, Albion Online. You can play a ton of online games on Linux. Oscar from the future here. Just forgot to tell you that if you like the content that I make sure to give me a good like and subscribe to the channel for more laid-back, casual Linux videos. Latest releases. We are eating good on Linux right now. Proton, which is the compatibility layer which allows us to play Windows games on Linux, has advanced leaps and bounds in the last years, and we're at a point where most, if not all, new releases just work outright on Linux day one. Games that came out fairly recently, such as Ark Raiders, Europa Universalis 5, Silent Hill, Monster Hunter Wilds, Hollow Knight Silksong, or Civilization 7, just work with no tinkering at all. Hell, Civilization 7 and Hollow Knight Silksong are even native Linux games, which don't need Proton at all. Some years ago, I remember having to check Proton DB all the time and worrying if a game would work on release, but we've reached a day where I can just buy a random game from the Steam store without bothering to look, and it just works. There are some cases that don't, of course, but it's getting rarer by the day. AAA gaming. Right, what about blockbuster games? The Last of Us remakes, the Resident Evil Villages, Cyberpunk 2077, Hitman, Elden Ring, Death Stranding, Hogwarts Legacy, Black Myth Wukong. Well, yes, they all work fine. It's true that maybe on the first few days or weeks there could be some hiccups, but I've mostly seen that they were more to do with the PC port itself rather than Linux. But they are all completely playable. Now, some of these games do have a multiplayer component, and maybe they don't work because the developer has blocked Linux, and that is the case of Ghost of Tsushima and GTA 5, but the single-player component is playable. So really, I haven't missed any of the big games. Peripheral games. Here we have a good niche. So let's talk about games that require or are best played with peripherals. So things like flight simulators, racing sims, and such. Let's begin with rhythm games. I really enjoy playing Guitar Hero style games, and I think that the best one currently on computers is Yarg because of how complete and modular it is. I own the PDP Riffmaster guitar, which came out fairly recently and uses a wireless dongle. It's practically plug and play and is picked up by Yarg instantly. I also have this white Gibson Les Paul, which came with the Wii version of Guitar Hero 3 back in 2007, and it's still working rock solid. It has a special adapter from RetroCult Mods to connect it to the computer via USB and is also registered just fine in Yarg. When it comes to flight simulators, joysticks and HOTAS work just right. I use a Thrustmaster T16000M HOTAS, and it doesn't need any extra installs or drivers for it to be picked up by the system. Bear in mind though that special software that would come with a joystick doesn't work on Linux, and that is the case of the Thrustmaster target software, but in many cases this software is not really essential, but you'll have to judge that yourself, especially with other brands of joysticks and their own software. A big one though is additional software for flight sims and race sims. These are genres which are famous for having lots of different add-on programs such as VATSIM or Pilot to ATC, or telemetry log software to nail those difficult turns in a race, or just apps to enhance the simulation overall. This is a mixed bag because some can work and others can't. I've never been a serious simmer myself, so I can live without these programs. For flying, I have enough info with Volanta, using their web app, SimBrief, and such. For Elite Dangerous, we have the EDC Market app in Flatpak, which works very well, but the famous Voice Attack with custom voice commands does not. Wheel and pedals are quite different because they require drivers, depending on the brand. I stopped sim racing now, but when I had my Logitech G29, I had to go over to Bararma's GitHub and download and install the Logitech wheel drivers and get his most excellent oversteer app to manage and configure my wheel and pedals. But everything worked perfectly after that. Big shout out to Bararma, by the way, because his projects for sim racing are quite amazing. Fun fact even, Oversteer allowed me to do something that I never could on Windows, which is using my Logitech racing pedals as flight rudder pedals. This is because you can configure the pedals to be a negative and positive axis, and it is picked up by Microsoft Flight Simulator as a generic axis, which I use to bind to the rudder pedals. So as you can see, there is generally good compatibility with peripheral games, although we would need some improvement here so that the most hardcore sim community could switch over, especially regarding companion software. Virtual reality. Okay, this is a big one because it has gotten so much better over the years, and it's about to get even better thanks to Valve and the recent announcement of the Steam Frame, which will be using Linux, of course. But over the years, we have been able to use the MetaQuest glasses, the Steam Index, HTC Vive, and several other brands and models of VR glasses thanks to projects such as ALVR and Wyvern, which have made VR gaming on Linux more than possible. I remember the time a friend of mine purchased the PSVR 2 to play on his PS5, and we decided to play After the Fall, a cool zombie co-op game which has crossplay. And I took the chance to quickly set up ALVR with very little experience and testing, but that night I was playing After the Fall on Linux with my friend on the PS5 with working voice chat, completely wireless, with my MetaQuest 2, and it was glorious. My faith in Linux and humanity was reaffirmed. I was so scared it was not going to work, but it just goes to show how many things do actually work fine on Linux. Mods. This one is kind of a mixed bag and is in a similar situation as the companion software of sim games. There are many methods of installing mods depending on the game or the platform in which you play, and that is going to determine if it works on Linux or not. If the game has Steam Workshop, then you are in luck since mods will probably work just fine. But if we're talking about mods that have their own installers and executable files, that can be quite hit or miss. You will need to learn how Wine and Proton prefixes work so you know where to drop the mods, or use tools like Steam Tinker Launch, which lets you run additional .exe files inside Proton prefixes. In my experience, I've been fortunate enough to be able to play the mods I want. Examples include the Darth mods for Empire Total War and Napoleon Total War, Ultimate Apocalypse for Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War, Age of the Ring for Battle for Middle-earth 2, Turtle WoW for World of Warcraft, and then many non-installable mods which are just dragging the files in, like in the case of Monster Hunter World, Ready or Not, Fallout 3, all of those working fantastically fine. I haven't had much luck with some mods that use their own launchers, such as Star Wars Battlefront 2's Kyber servers, but we would have to wait whenever the devs support running it on Linux, if ever. Old physical media games. This is a fun one because in many cases you'll be able to install and run Windows games that don't work on Windows anymore or need a lot of extra tinkering to get working on Windows. So games such as Black and White 2, Medal of Honor, Pacific Assault, American McGee's Alice, or the movies have an easier time being set up on Linux via Lutris than all the tinkering you must do over on Windows 11 to get them running again. There are games that don't work, and this is also a bit of hit and miss, but I've been pretty lucky so far. I even got this super niche RTS game about the Spanish Civil War running effortlessly via Lutris, so I'd say the experience is overall positive and better than in Windows even. This is not the case of a physical media game per se, but just a curious case. I own Hogs of War on Steam, which was a very old Worms-like game, but in 3D and with pigs in World War II, and it originally came out on the PS1 and Windows. Well, the current Steam release doesn't work on Windows at all. I think you do need to do a lot of tinkering to get it working, and there's a guide on that in the Steam forums. But I honestly don't know why they sell it, because it's a broken product. But on Linux, it runs no tinkering at all. It's just install, play the game, and there you go. You're playing Hogs of War. Emulation. Emulation is a real treat on Linux, I must say. If you're into retro games, you won't have any problems on Linux. You have all the major emulators and they run fantastically natively on Linux. My home theater PC, which is running Bazite, has all the retro gaming goodness I can ask for, and the performance is great from the Atari 2600 all the way up to the Nintendo Switch. If you want front ends, you also have those. I like Emulation Station. It's beautiful and makes me feel like a kid again. So no problem here. If you want to set up an emulation machine, I would honestly tell you that Linux is the best platform for that. Wrapping things up, gaming on Linux is still far from perfect compared to Windows, but it's the best it has ever been, and I don't miss Windows one bit. It's true that sometimes I can't play a certain game with a friend, like when my brother invited me to play on a 5M server on GTA 5. Those occurrences are rare and happen with games I really don't care about. I'm not losing sleep over it. Hopefully this video helped you get a clear picture of how things really are in Linux gaming land, and maybe showed you that it's not nearly as dire as some people make it sound. Maybe this was the little push you needed to finally give Linux a try. That being said, it's always a good idea to remember the wise words of the Linux terminal. With great power comes great responsibility.